Hi, welcome to the Port of Leonardtown Winery. Tonight we have North End Gallery here doing a butterfly pottery class. We have various classes throughout the year. You can check out our Facebook page. We're back to 7 days a week open with wine slushies, wine tastings, and of course you can get the information about our wine clubs. Come out and see us. We have a great venue, great location, perfect spot in Leonardtown.
Hi, I'm Sarah Houde, St. Mary's County potter. I have been making pots here for the last 35 years. I never meant to be a potter, is kind of the way life evolved. I was a marine biology major in college and grad school, but you know, I got into the clay studio and one thing led to another, and instead of devoting my life to science, I devoted it to clay work. So 35 years later, I'm still having a lot of fun in the studio making all sorts of things. A lot of oyster plates and fish dishes, and for this class project, pots with flowers on them and butterflies. It will go with the whole Leonardtown theme of the butterfly trail. Anyway, so to make clay pots, it doesn't take a lot. You basically need to start with a lump of clay for most projects, or a slab of clay. So I have lumps of clay here. This is what we're going to use to make our pinch pot as our warm-up exercise. And slabs of clay cut that we will turn into some kind of vase with flowers pressed in and some butterfly stamps pressed in. And then after we've put together the pieces, we'll use some colorful underglazes, and we'll just paint, you know, a little bit of paint around them. The underglaze is just liquid clay with coloring added to it. And then when they dry, I will fire them. One time, do the bisque firing, and the second time will be after I put on a clear glaze. So the clear glaze I use is a clear matte, so they won't be too shiny, but it will show the detail of your work. You could also do some carving when you make your pinch pot. You can use some little cutouts that I have of little flowers or butterflies if you like, and then you could make this, this could be a votive, and so you can have fun with this too. You could also carve out a butterfly shape if you prefer to do that, but sometimes the little butterflies are easy cutouts to use. I also have some butterfly stamps here, which are fun to use too. You can paint that with your underglaze color that you like and stamp it into clay. Or you can just push it into clay and have the texture and paint it later. Okay, so in today's class, I'm going to show you how you don't need many tools or any skills at all to get started with pottery. I'll start you on a very simple pinch pot, which you can turn into a candle votive, and also a vase that you'll make from a slab of clay. And I've got all these flowers that butterflies like that you can press into the clay, and we'll paint those later. And it'll be fun, just using a couple tools, your hands, a fork to score things and join them together, a paintbrush, maybe a needle tool if you want to make some marks, but very simple tools. Welcome to Leonardtown, Port of Leonardtown Winery. This is the first clay class that I've held here. I think it might be the first one ever. So I have a couple projects for you to work on. I want you to know not to be intimidated at all. Okay, because clay is, people have been working on clay for thousands of years, and very simple pinch pots have lasted for thousands of years as well, you know. But we're going to start with a simple pinch pot as your warm-up exercise, and the plan is to make something like a little votive where you can put a little candle in it. So this is a simple one that I made with about this much clay. So I'm gonna show you how to make a pinch pot like that, and then I've got all these little cookie cutters. You can cut some shapes out, and you can attach the shapes on top if you like. Okay, and then later we'll do the painting with underglazes. Okay, so that's the first kind of warm-up project. We're not going to be spending a lot of time on this. The project that you'll spend more time on is making your other vase, your tall vase, and this is going to be a slab project. And I've got the slabs cut out here. And I've got all these flowers and herbs and things that you're going to press into clay, and you're rolling. Either you have a dowel for rolling or something like this for rolling. You're going to gently roll the flowers into the clay, and that'll give you a nice outline to paint later. I also have some So all these flowers, I'll show you how to do that when we get there. I also have some butterfly stamps that you can use to press in. And if you want to get really creative and design your own, I've got great resources here. All kinds of butterflies that you can go if you want to be more accurate with your colors or your shapes or something like that. So let's get started with this little warm-up project. Okay, make your ball as round as you can to start with. Okay, this is a simple pinch pot. You're just going to hold it. Is anybody left-handed? Okay, so you're going to hold it in your right hand if you're left-handed. But otherwise, you're just going to do the opposite of what everybody else does. So just firmly hold this. The secret to making a pinch pot so it doesn't go in and out to a plate is to use your hand as a cup to kind of mold it, to kind of hold it. So you're going to start with your thumb in the middle, and you're just going to pinch a little at a time. You're not doing big pinches at any one time. This is a really basic project. Maybe you've done this like in first grade. So you're just going to start a little at a time. You don't want it to get too thin, but you want to keep on cupping it. You're going to spread it out later. Just a little at a time. You just kind of rotate it. So if your clay starts to crack, you can that means your hands are really warm and they're drying out the clay. You can just dip your fingers in a little bit of water, just a teeny bit, because if you put too much on, the clay will get too soft. But that's enough to kind of bring it back together. Okay, so you just gotta keep on pinching and rotating, pinching and rotating. You do want the sides and the bottom to be that same thickness eventually. And as you're thinning it, then you can start spreading it a little bit at a time. Like picture the size of one of those small votive candles. That's what we'd like to be able to put in here to enclose it. Okay, so you keep pinching, you can start smoothing, pushing a little bit, but keep on supporting it with your hands. Keep cupping it with your hands. And anytime it gets a little cracking, just a teeny bit of water. Cracking will add texture, which is not a bad thing.
Oh, that's true.
Also,
Cracking will add texture, so it's not a bad thing.
texture is always a good thing when you're working with clay. The beauty with clay is that whatever you press into it will leave a mark, whether it's your fingers, or a fork, or a flower, or a stamp, or a fish, or a crab. I mean, whatever you want to push into clay, it leaves a mark. I do actually make fish prints from clay, and crab prints, and they're interesting. They get all the characteristics, all the details. So as it starts to thin, you can start opening it up just a little bit.
Okay.
Start opening it up a little bit by letting it get wider. You can start pinching it out. If you have to, if you want to, you can put it down on the table and start rotating it on the table.
Do I want it to be more open than it is now?
You can dig into the bottom a little bit and then spread that clay from the bottom out to the sides. Those little votive candles aren't very big, so it doesn't have to be a huge piece. You all have about a pound of clay here, maybe a little bit more than that. And they're all looking really good. Some of you have more experience than others. It all looks great, and this is all okay. However it turns out, it's all okay. You can smooth out the little cracks that develop or not, your choice. If you want to smooth them out, just put a little bit of, dip your fingers in the water and just smooth a little bit, and that will make them go away. Or you can just leave them in because, it's clay and it's a nice textural element, and it'll make them appear more rustic. You can use one of the butterfly cutters, or you can use a little flower cutter. Okay, and what you're going to do is, when you are wanting to cut out a shape, put your opposite hand on the inside of the pot and just press pretty hard so it's up against your fingers, and then you'll pull out and you'll have that little shape inside the cookie cutter. And you can use this little shape can get that out just by pushing it out gently. Now I have a teeny flower, so I'm going to attach that teeny flower to the outside of my pot. So to attach anything, we need to score and slip it. So the scoring is just using a fork or another sharp tool, but a fork works great. Very easy. Everybody's got one. And so scoring it and slipping it, you score it first, and then you add a couple drops of water, and score it again, and it gets gooey. It gets gooey like that. And where are you going to attach it? You do the same thing. You score it the outside of the pot, and then add a little water, and then attach it. Then you attach it, and make sure you push it down really well. If your scoring marks got a little carried away, it's okay, you can blend it right out. And I have a couple other little tools that you can use to add definition to your flowers, to your butterfly. You can use one of these tools. These are cake decorating tools. You can use, look in your kitchen drawer for any kind of tools that have interesting characteristics. You know, a fork, a spoon, a seashell, they all make great wine. So, you know, look for something that's interesting to you and you can use it to make noise. So put a little centerpiece on that so you can put as many little holes in, but I think you want, remember you want this to be a bonus. So you want to be able to have light shine out through it. It's open. Okay, so if you want to make a cutout on a piece using a small cookie cutter, and you're finding that the clay is getting stuck inside your cookie cutter, if you put a piece of plastic down between your piece and the cookie cutter, that'll keep the clay from sticking.
I gotcha. Pop it right out.
Yeah. So for example, I'm just going to smooth that piece right there, and I'm still going to have to put my hand on the inside to support it. But now I'm pushing. It's harder to make it all the way through, but you have to push a lot harder. And I'm pushing against my thumb, but that will keep the edges smoother, and it'll keep. Then you pull away the plastic. What?
Oh, that's
Look
good.
at
that.
And then you end up actually with a better butterfly. You can use some with smoother edges, and the one that's just Okay, so
Yes.
that's a little tip of the trade. Okay, now we're ready for the second project. Okay, I've given you each a slab of clay. It's about, they're roughly like 8 inches high, 7.5 or 8 inches high. Some of them might be an inch larger because that's the way the slabs came out. I rolled them out so they're pretty even. So there's a little bit of room here for you to press flowers and things into the clay, but you don't want to press so hard that you thin your clay out a lot. It can thin out a little bit, but not a lot, okay? A couple things to decide first is, do you want your piece to be tall? That means it's going to wrap around this way. Some of them might be thinner than the others. It could wrap around this way and be a thin, tall piece, or it could wrap around this way and be wider. I'm thinking that wider is going to be more stable, you know, and a lot of flowers you can cut off so that they can sit in a vase that's not really tall. Sometimes it's hard to use a vase that's like 7 inches tall. It might be easier to use a short one. In any case, so you're going to start figuring out which way you want to orient it. And I have given you all one form of rolling or another. When I'm done with this, I'll be happy to share it. This is a wallpaper brayer, but I've got some dowels cut in different widths, and the dowels work just as well. You could use a rolling pin in your home kitchen as well. Okay, you could even use a bottle if you could make it so the clay didn't stick to it. That would be the problem though. Would the clay, you don't want the clay to stick to a cold red bottle. So I'm going to start by laying out a little bit of a design. A couple things, a couple notes here. When you're making a piece that's going to be finished on the top, that slab built, your piece of plastic will come in handy again. Decide which top piece is going to be your top, and you're going to smooth it with the plastic. Just use your thumb and the plastic, and that will give that top edge a nice smooth edge, so it won't be ragged, it'll be less likely to crack. I'm even going to turn it over to the other side and do the same thing on the other side. That's going to make it a little bit more rounded and a smoother edge. Okay, so that's going to be your first step. Another thing that you're going to do, you're going to wrap it around, and seal the two sides together. So two things that you're going to have to do that I highly recommend is using either your wallpaper brayer or your dowel. You're going to roll one side just a teeny bit. I'm just putting a teeny bubble on that one side. The opposite side we're going to do too in the opposite direction. So those are just on the edges that you're going to put together. And then these edges that you're going to put together, you're going to end up scoring and slipping before you put the piece together. So that's where your fork comes in handy again to score. And then once you have it scored up a bit, then you're going to dip in the water and score it a little bit more. Okay? So those are places that we're going, but not quite yet. So decide which flowers you want to use. I have a variety here. I've got some black-eyed Susans, some phlox, some passion flower vine, which is some of my favorites. That's what I used here. Too bad I didn't have any flowers blooming today, because the flowers are very cool and they make neat imprints, but just the vine itself is very cool. Also have some fennel here. Fennel makes a very cool mark. So I'm going to start by showing you a little fennel. So you don't have to clutter this up that much, but I've tried to pick things that butterflies like to pollinate or get their pollen. So you're going to start. It's important to spread out your flower that you're going to use so you get a nice image of the flower. So in this case, I'm going to spread out the fennel, okay? And I think I'm not going to worry about the stems, I'm just going to worry about the flowers itself. I'm going to spread out that fennel pretty well, and I'm just going to roll it. You can come closer if you'd like to see this better, so you get a better idea of what I'm doing. I'm just rolling this, and then you'll see the mark that's left behind is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the fennel makes very cool marks. Yep, and it smells good too. It's really nice. Still works really well. It's very similar. So this could kind of be the background. In my garden, the fennel is about 6 feet tall right now. It's kind of nuts. So it kind of overtowers everything. So in this case, I'm going to have it up at the very top. And again, just roll it in. And it just makes some very fun marks, as you can see. It's all about texture. This is going to be the marks that you're going to use to paint. Okay, when we get to that. Okay, so now, what should go under with that? Let me just show you a couple flowers that make interesting marks, and then you can decide which one to do. I use black-eyed Susan, lantana, and some leaves. Leaves make really nice marks too. So you can use leaves or not. That's kind of beat. I'm not sure with that. I know in my garden too, the cat mint draws a lot of butterflies in, so I'm going to see if I can put that in. It kind of grows close to the ground. So when you use something like this, it's got little leaves that are small and flowers that are small. You want to spread them out so that it doesn't just look like a mash. You know, you want it to kind of retain the shape of the flower. So laying them out at that point is pretty, that's important to lay them out carefully so that you get the image that you would like. So I'm going to take just a minute and spread these out really well. I'm going to try to set up the flowers a little bit, and then I'll roll that into. I mean, if it's not perfect, it's okay, but you'd like to be able to see those little leaves. And And again, it'll give you something to paint. So that makes some pretty nice marks with those leaves. Whichever of the greenery or flowers you use, you want to spread it out. And if something's in the way, just pull it off. So taking the time to spread them out will give you a better mark. By now, everybody's got some slab that's decorated with flowers and butterflies, or holly and butterflies, or whatever you chose. So now we're going to put this together into a vase. So we'll start by beveling one edge using your roller or the brayer. You're going to bevel one side edge. So I think this is going to wrap together into a tube. Okay, and once we have it stabilized as a tube, then we're going to attach the bottom to it. And we'll cut the bottoms once we have all the pieces done there. Tube. Okay, so you're going to roll this here on the side. Just you want to give it a slight bevel on one of the edges where it's going to be attached, and then you're going to score it. I'll give it back. I promise.
About a half inch. About a half inch.
Yeah. And then you're going to flip it over to the other side and bevel the other side. So bevel that, and again, score that, maybe scored in the different directions.
Yeah, it'll be on both sides.
It'll be on both
I
sides.
just turned mine.
Okay.
Okay, so you need to make sure that you've got it nice and slippy on the edges. So I'm just dipping this fork in water enough to make it gooey. Okay, so I actually am doing this. There we go. There's the bottom. The bottom's on the bottom now. I'm just going to bend the piece together and slightly overlap those sides. You're going to have to probe it with your finger. You're going to probably put your hand inside, or if not your hand, and your hand won't fit, you can use a dowel inside.
Double dipping.
So see, I'm like making a seam here. So I've got some brushes over here which I can pass out to. If you feel like your edge is too dry, you can add a little bit more water to it. And then you're going to press with one hand on the inside. So you're going to bevel both sides in opposite directions and score them in opposite directions so that when they come together, the scoring will make it stay together. And instead of being a double thickness on that seam, it'll be like a single thickness. Okay? Or maybe a little bit more than a single, not quite double. So you want to make sure you get a good seam closure. You know it's really a good seam when you have a little bit of glue that's squished together. A little bit. A little bit. And then once you
Inside and press it on the outside.
you can use your thumb on the inside to smooth it a little bit more. And you're gonna have to make the shape that you want it to be. So you can turn it into an oval, you can keep it round, you can make it a diamond shape, just whichever shape. Just make sure your seam is nice and gooey when you're putting it together. So we're gonna make a custom bottom for each base. So we're gonna cut a slab of clay that's a little bit bigger than the base of the base. Okay, we're gonna cut it. Then we're going to use our plastic to round the edges on both sides. Then we're going to put your initials on one side or your name, however you want to sign it. Make sure you do it in the pencil or a round edge so it will stay on there. Okay, and then we're going to score and slip it, both the bottom of the vase and around the edge of the bottom. Okay, so lift up your piece.
And let's try to make the most out of this little slab. Okay, arrange that so it's the right configuration.
Can you take a look, looking in, and see if it looks okay? Okay, and then you're satisfied. Now you're going to trace around it, go about that far, maybe a little bit less. Just give it a little bit of a buffer or something. I kind of like to make that edge that folds over a little bit decorative. I use a tool with texture, and that adds just a little textural element. And I'll show you when we get there. Whoever's ready to do that first.
Okay.
Okay? Take this away. Then smooth your edges and soften them up like Michelle is doing.
Alright, that should work.
Okay, now you're going to lift your piece off.
Keep it together like this?
No, lift it off. Just put it aside. Okay, now you're going to smooth your edges. You can use your plastic again to smooth your edges. Go ahead and... Yeah, you want to really press hard enough to take all the burrs off of that edge. And then you're going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. So that way the edges will be nice and smooth and there'll be no burrs on it. And then you're going to put your initials on the bottom, on whichever side you decide is going to be the bottom. Your initials or your name, however you signed it on your first piece. You want to sign it the same on your second piece. Go ahead and flip that over. Okay, and now you're going to score around the outer perimeter, like really score and get it nice and gooey. Okay? And then, this is your bottom here? Already?
Top, or whatever. We can make, I made that design for the end.
Okay, well you're going to do the exact same
Do the
thing
same
on the
thing on the
bottom.
bottom.
Score
Okay,
up the bottom. Just using the fork, you want to support it on the ground. So you're going to use your fork and some water. Really scoring. Use your hands to support. You want to get it nice and gooey because you want that bottom to stay attached. Through the drying and the firing process, that's really important. So you keep on going and do the same thing around here. Make it nice and gooey. Okay? If you want to, you can use a brush to add a little water or your sponge to add a little water. Yeah, just score it up really, really well.
Sure. We're good there?
Okay, so pick that up and flip it on top of there.
Okay.
Try to line it up so that there's that overlap everywhere.
And then just using your fingers, try to smooth that edge. Smooth that with your fingers. You know, just burrs and things are a little annoying. You can make a sharp edge, so you want to do anything you can to get rid of sharp edges. Okay, and then you're just going to start smoothing it down, folding it over. And then, if you want to, you can use a tool to give it a little texture. Is one of these okay?
Yeah. I guess this is just roll it like
Yeah, roll it till you get a little kind of, but roll it enough, roll it hard enough so you actually push the bottom into the side. So it's just about flush with the side. See that?
I got a little more on this side because I'm actually.
Yeah, just do it. That's the beauty of it. They're handmade pieces. You don't expect them to be perfect. I mean, if you wanted perfect, you'd go to Walmart and buy something that was pushed out of the machine, right? This is something made by your own hand. Awesome. There you go. Looks like you got it.
Right.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to show you how to stretch a piece of clay that might be a little bit thick. So I want to thin this out, and I also want to spread it out so that it's going to stretch how much there is here. I want to get two bottoms on this. So I'm going to start throwing the clay and flipping it, and that's going to start stretching it, and then I'm going to do from side to side. And I'm hoping that I can stretch it enough to get two bottoms out of this. Okay, so that went from a piece that was about this size to that, so I stretched it out a bit. So if those of you at home are wondering how you can paint your own pottery, you can look online. There's a couple sources nearby. Baltimore Clayworks has got Clayworks supplies where they sell underglazes, but you can just look online for underglazes, ceramic underglazes, and they come in many colors. In this case, I made a bunch using one base underglaze color and I added stain, but you can buy pre-made in different size bottles, pre-made underglaze in any color that you want. This brand is made by Duncan. I think Duncan does a lot. If you use one called Cover Coat, that will almost act as a glaze. You don't want to go for the velvets because the velvet gives you a real smooth touch. You want a cover coat or just a smooth underglaze, and you can paint away on them. And then the pieces just need to be dipped in clear glaze or white glaze and fired. You'll have to find your own way of getting it fired if you don't have a kiln. But you can usually talk to somebody who has a kiln and will fire pieces for you. Okay, when you're putting your seams together, when you're putting your piece together, turning it from a flat piece into a cylinder, you can smooth your edges so your seam that you're blending can be invisible if you like, or you can leave it visible. I always leave mine visible and kind of use it as a textural mark. You know, I just added a different texture along here. Sometimes I'll push flowers or something small along there. And I often also texture around the very base. That pushes the clay in and it just adds another textural element to the piece. You can do that or not. It's totally up to you. It's just one of the many choices you can make when you're creating something in clay. So now that you have your pieces finished and you're doing the finishing touches on your painting with underglazes, I want to tell you what happens next to your piece. I will let the piece dry for 3 or 4 days until it's really like bone hard. And then I will fire it once, and that's called a bisque firing. And it will be fired to about 1850 degrees. Then when the kiln is cooled down, that takes about 24 hours. When the kiln is cooled down, I will put wax on the bottom so no glaze sticks there. And then I'll just dip it into clear glaze. In this case, I'm going to use a clear matte, so it'll look like this. It won't be real shiny. It's just like a nice, smooth, matte finish, and your colors will pop right forward. You all did the hard work of the decorating, so dipping it into a clear glaze is pretty easy. Then I'll fire it again, and that glaze firing is a cone 6. It is about 2185, I think is the temperature my kiln is using for cone 6, and that firing will take about 15 hours, another 24 to cool down, and when your piece is finished, it'll actually be 12% smaller than it was when you made it. The clay is going to have to lose some water, and it'll be lighter, and it will hold water, and unless a crack develops somewhere, that is. and it'll be ready for you to use to put flowers in. And in the case of your votives, you'll be able to put your candle in there. Enjoy it on your dining room table or outside. And I wanted to thank very much Port of Leonardtown for hosting us tonight. What a fun experience in a beautiful setting here, sitting on the banks of McIntosh Run. It's a beautiful place. I thank the town of Leonardtown and the Arts Council and the North End Gallery for making this possible. Hope to see you all again sometime.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
This is fun.
Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about me, Sarah Houde, you can go to my website, sarahhoodepottery.com.
Bye.